Hello, friend, and welcome to Borgcast 3.23 with Peter and Anne-Marie.
Hello!
It's nice when it rhymes. Also, we have a Lila on my lap who's looking very surprised suddenly. Yes, you're on the recording. No worries. And today we are covering the penultimate episode of the final season of the original series, All Our Yesterdays, which is a title that comes from Macbeth. And all our yesterdays have alighted fools, the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Yeah, me neither. At least the episode title makes sense in context for a change, I suppose. Unlike the Japanese title.
Oh.
Dangerous of Time Machine.
Yeah.
Doesn't mention the planet, though.
No.
This is written by Jean-Lisette Alroesti. Possibly.
Jean Aresti, Gentil Aresti, Jean Aresti, Gentil Aresti.
I guess that was her theme tune. Her second episode on the series, the last one was Is There in Truth No Beauty? Which was the Enterprise transporting an alien so ugly you can't look at it, and featured Spock quite a bit, if you may remember.
Oh, no, I remember that. And the one who can't see, and she's got that special coat.
Yeah, that's right, yes. Trekker only writing credits. She was a librarian. Oh, coincidence? Maybe she was Miss A to Z or A to Z. Even more tellingly, she's yet another woman writing a love interest for Spock rather than Kirk, so...
Woman with sense.
Yeah. Directed by Marvin Chomsky, his third. The previous being And the Children Shall Lead. Well, I don't think it was his fault, that was so rubbish. And Day of the Dove. He does a poor job of editing one scene in this, if that's his responsibility, but otherwise all is well on the direction front.
Wait, I haven't prepared you. Defend yourself. There's the Morton accomplice, arrest him. He on the law. Jim, what's the matter? Jim! Lord Elvis, what's that?
It's spirits. Do you know what it's like to be alone?
Yes.
You listen to me, you pointed-eared Vulcan.
I don't like that. I don't think I ever did, and now I'm sure.
He's a witch! He's a witch!
There's nothing to do with it. At least let me talk to you. There are witches.
Witch! Witch!
So they're in a system where the star is going nova.
Beta Niobe.
Yeah.
And the planet is Sarpedon, apparently.
Or something like
Sarpedon.
that. Sarpendon or something, I don't know. It sounded a bit like Harpenden with
Yes.
an S. So it's Sarpendon in Sarpshire.
Interestingly, we don't get any scenes set on the Enterprise in this.
You're right.
Which is very unusual.
Really odd, yes.
And nice that we get lots of sets as a result. Yeah.
So the planet was inhabited by an intelligent species, but there's no sign of any life anymore.
Yeah, how does that... presumably their sensors aren't good enough to spot the one life sign there, maybe? I don't know. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Well, only one life sign doesn't make... They should be reading lots, shouldn't they?
Yes, that's true. And we know, and it's explained why they're not reading lots. It's not explained why they're not reading one, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know, unless because it's such a... they're reading over a large area, they're not going to pick up one. It takes quite a few to pick up.
Uh-huh. But yes, we don't know how good their sensors are at this stage, I guess.
Yeah.
Let me have my beer, please. Thank you.
And the question is, where did they go? Because there's no records indicating they ever had space flight. So where have they all gone?
Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
Oh, not again. I'm sorry about this.
And then, as if by magic, the librarian appears.
Yeah, very good.
He's a Mr. Atos.
Yes, Mr. A to Z. You see what they did there?
Oh.
Yeah. Played by Ian Wolfe. Do you seem familiar to you?
No, actually.
All right, well, we have seen him before. He was the rebel leader Septimus in Bread and Circuses. He's also in the Dick Tracy film. I don't think he was under a great deal of makeup in that. I think he was fairly... I think he may just have had big ears or something. Cheers, Taxi, THX 1138, Perry Mason,
Brandon!
And as ever with actors of this era, many other westerns.
Yeah. Now, I really enjoyed Perry Mason when I was a child. I have been worried about ever rewatching it again.
Yeah, in case it loses its... I was like that with Cheers, to be fair, and it turned out to be good. And actually, and the same with Taxi as well. You think maybe this is dated badly, but I mean, the things like Sam... Oh, I'm not going to get into Cheers now. But anyway, the bottom line is, actually, they're quite aware of their own limitations sort of thing. Actually, so, for instance, in Cheers, they take the pee out of the fact that Sam is such a lechy woman's man, and how inappropriate that actually is. So, actually, I was kind of happily surprised with how well it stood up.
Don't know if that's going to be the same for Perry Mason or
Who
not.
could say? I mean, why would Perry Mason not stand up though? I mean, it's not inherently.
I'm just it's a TV sort of crime.
Which one is Perry Mason? He's not the wheelchair one. That's Ironside.
No. So Perry Mason is the guy. He's the defence attorney who convinces the jury to acquit his defendant every time because he shows them that someone else did it.
I bet his fees were incredibly high then. Blimey. Guaranteed. Get this guy, he'll get you off.
Yeah, but he always had two people doing his investigations. And I think one of them was, if I remember rightly, one of them was a woman and one of them was a black man. So the women investigated the women, and the black man investigated the black community.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that doesn't necessarily...
And it might be all right, if you see what I mean.
Well, perhaps we'll have to do an experiment and try and watch some Perry Mason between now and 2 weeks' time.
Oh, okay. I'm up for that.
If we can find some somewhere.
My mum probably has it.
Yeah, she probably does, but probably on VHS, which is
That
very
is
helpful.
also true. That is also... Well, no, because she got rid of her VHS player when she moved. Well, it's probably on YouTube, to be honest. Is that fucking old?
Anyway, I think going back to Mr.
A to Z.
Mr. A to Z, Mr. Wolf, I think he plays a very cool, mysterious dude in this. I appreciate his performance.
Yeah. So he says to these people, I'll help you choose your option to relocate. And they keep asking questions, and he's like, no, I'm not at liberty to divulge individual places. I like that. That would...
Data protection, very good.
They would comply now. But it's like, but I can give you some options. And this is go to the reference desk, and each of them seem to be the same person. And the very last one they come across and says, you're very, very late. Where have you been? And it's Kirk is going, how many of there are you exactly? And then after the teaser, you basically find that the last one... The where have you been is the original, and he's delegated simple tasks to his replicants, and he's the one left and everybody else went away, and he has a plan to join his wife and child, when the time comes, but he's obviously got to sort them out first. And why does he... So he gets these things that look a bit like CDs.
Yeah, they're great. I love that. I mean, that's high tech for the time as well. They're thinking. I mean, I suppose it's similar in some ways to the Enterprise's little cassette things, but that's good.
And you put...
all Doctor Who was doing in this era was those great big reel-to-reel computers, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you get this like basically this CD, and it would be a CD-ROM, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And it projects the image.
Also gives you a bunch of GIFs and things, trailers
To go with Windows 95.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of the future.
Yeah. I remember being part of a massive project to put a whole load of stuff on CD-ROM.
Oh, it didn't go into all of those time things?
No, it was all about helping the British Library to put their microfiche documents onto CD-ROM, but the technology had been superseded before they were even halfway through.
Yeah, and you can't play the buggers anymore.
No. Anyway... When you put these CD-ROMs in, it projects moving images of these places.
Oh, did you know that? By the way, I've just discovered. Trying to look to see if it's available anywhere. They did a of Perry Mason in 2020. Apparently, that would have been lockdown, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. No, I'm sorry. Neither Perry Masons are available legally.
Not even on Netflix.
Nope. Boo. Might be some on YouTube. You never know. We could have a look at YouTube.
Yeah, there might be just one episode would give me an idea.
Yes, exactly. That's all we want.
Yeah, so you look through these views and it's all these different places, and for some reason, Mr. A to Z, ATOS, says to Kirk, "Oh, I've got something for you," and automatically knows that what he's going to want. I don't understand what that's about.
I think that's him being a salesman and going, I know what's exactly what you want.
Okay, fair enough. Meanwhile, Spock is asking about the machine, which is a Tavacron. So, or Avatacron, I don't know. Avatacron? Avatar and Cron.
Atavacron. There
Right.
you go. And yes, Perry Mason is available on YouTube, and we'll have to stand by for adverts, I suppose, but 17 episodes on one thing. So.
I don't think we need to watch 17, I think.
No, one will be enough.
But not the pilot, because they're never quite right. So maybe sort of episode 5 or 6 or something. Anyway, it's the Atavacron, as you pointed out, which, given that it's got cron in it for chronology, should give you a clue.
Yeah. Also, that console has cropped up before. It was
I
Gary
thought-
Seven's computer from a Simon
Was
Turf
it?
at the end of the last season.
Kirk hears a scream and follows it, and inadvertently goes through one of these portal things. Followed very soon, but not immediately, by Spock and Bones.
It's a nice effect, isn't it, as they go through it? Although
Reminded
it does
me
look...
of the Iconian Gateway.
It also reminded me of people getting exterminated by Daleks. That's the only downside.
But they don't. They arrive in different places. Kirk arrives somewhere where...
Well, he was looking at a Western, by the looks of
Yeah.
it, but he ends up somewhere...
Spanish Inquisition-y.
Sort of. It's very weird. I mean, that woman's accent is all over the place.
God, it's...
Sometimes Irish, sometimes Scottish. Yeah. So it's very hard to place where this is. But then again, of course, this isn't human history
No,
they're
it's-
looking at.
so
it could be an amalgamation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyway.
Originally, Spock and McCoy were going to be stranded in a desert.
But no, this time they're in an ice place.
Yeah, and I
ice
think
place.
they make a good fist of the polar look, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know which would have been easier, but the polar one works quite nicely.
It's really cold, and Spock's phaser won't work. Now, given the weirdness that happens with time travel in this story, that would be okay and consistent in a way with what happens with Spock if it weren't for the fact that later on his tricorder does.
Yeah. The
So
logic of this, unfortunately, story does not work, but we'll get on to that.
we'll get on to that, but yeah. So the phaser won't work, so they can't hear the rocks. And meanwhile, Kirk can hear them and they can hear him, and vice versa. And this is when they work out that they've gone back in time. And then Kirk intervenes where a woman is screaming and being attacked.
By the way, where Kirk is, that's the Paramount standing European town sets, which is why they look so good. So.
Oh, okay. Fair
I
enough.
mean, this looks like it's had, unlike most of season 3, some budget spent on it. But that's partly because they're filming in a standing set for one bit of it anyway.
Initially, it's quite fun in that Kirk takes these blokes down, and then one of them's like, oh, how dare you, slave. He's like, I'm not a slave, I'm a free man. And then there's a sword fight. That's quite fun. I like that.
So the one who knocks Kirk over
is
credited as FOP1.
FOP1.
Yes.
That sounds like something you plug something into. Like HDMI 1.
Well, FOP, wasn't that where they sold loads of DVDs?
Yeah,
Central
but
London?
then it changed to loads of Funko Pops instead. I don't know if it's still there.
as all these places have, sadly. Yeah, the whole of society will just be buried by Funko Pops in the end. Anyway, he's played by Ed Beakey, who was in Murder, She Wrote, Charlie's Angels, and the Lincoln TV miniseries, which has come up before now. Last time we broadcasted on original series. And also in Starsky and Hutch. Not that I never watched that one, but anyway.
Oh, no, I did. It was a detective thing. See, we watched all of the detective things.
Wasn't it more sort of police?
No, yeah, but anything like that we watched. We watched Starsky. Did you watch Cagney and Lacey? I watched Cagney. Oh, no, we watched Cagney and Lacey. We watched Ironside. We watched Perry Mason.
Uh-huh.
All of those things.
The one who attacks Kirk with his sword is FOP2, who's played by Al Cavens, who was stunt Klingon in Day of the Dove recently. And also in 1972's intriguingly sounding The Biscuit Eater. No, it's not about our son.
What?
I know.
The Biscuit Eater? What the fuck is that?
In this touching adventure, a remake of the popular 1940 film, so there was a film called The Biscuit
Eater. Right.
Two young Georgia boys team up and befriend a feral bird dog, whom they train to participate in field trials.
Dog?
A dog that hunts birds. So it's not a combination of a bird and a dog, but it's
that's what I'm thinking. Dog with wings.
presumably they give him some biscuits. I can only presume by the title. Although there's no mention of that in the IMDb description.
So what we would call a hound.
Yes, or a game dog, is that a thing?
No, well, you have a gun dog, maybe.
Gun dog, yes, that's the phrase, isn't it? He's a gun dog, yeah.
But they call them bird dogs.
Anyway, it has...
But they're not a mixture of a bird. Mind you, a gun dog isn't a mixture of a gun and a
a
dog.
dog, no, either.
I
So.
get that. Right, okay.
It has a Roger Moore era Bond star Clifton James in it. He's Sheriff Pepper, if you remember from a couple of the Moore films.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes.
Anyway, returning to Stuart... Al Cavens, rather. He's in 9 episodes of Mission Impossible, all in different roles, naturally.
You watched a lot of Mission Impossible as well.
5 episodes of 1960s Batman, credited as Henchman, Goon, and the Penguin, which seems a bit improbable to me, but there you go. 41 episodes of Gunsmoke.
I don't think I did see that.
That's a Western. 7 episodes of Bonanza, and many other Westerns as well. Huzzah. The Woman. And she's just credited as...
Woman.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did actually make in my notes.
A woman.
Yeah. Played by Anna Karen, who was in 19 episodes of soap opera Peyton Place.
Oh, that's the one you mentioned before with all the posh people in.
People married and divorced, loved and lost, murder, illicit passion, insanity, and secrets were the staples of Peyton Place, apparently.
Right.
Sounds thrilling. Also starred Tim O'Connor, a.k.a. Dr. Hewer from Buck Rogers.
Oh!
Yeah. But yeah, quite why she's some weird combination of Irish and Scottish. The actor's from New Jersey. Go figure.
Yep. So then you have the woman has appeared on the ice planet. But at this stage, you don't know it's a woman. It's just a person in furs and takes them into a cave. And this is where Spock sort of tries to insist that they stay, and McCoy's like, no, save yourself. So the person in furs appears and rescues them, and it turns out it's
A woman.
Yes.
She knows about the Avatacron, and she had initially thought she'd imagined Spock because he's an alien. And it turns out that the ice age is where the prisoners all get sent.
Yes. So it's brilliant in a cave set. It's
Yeah.
got a ceiling and everything. I mean, they really have spent some money on it.
Yeah.
They presume went, we've got a bit of money left behind the sofa. Quick, spend it.
Yeah.
This is Zara Beth, who is played by Mariette Hartley, who was still working up until last year.
Oh, wow.
On a comedy called Fireside Chat with Esther, about which I could find out very little even on IMDb. I couldn't possibly list her credits because she's never been out of work,
Wow.
seemingly. And I'm not surprised because I think she's great.
Yeah,
in
she
this.
is really good.
I mean, it does beg the question of how she keeps her hair so perfect in this cave, but, other than that...
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's wearing... I think that, although, yes, obviously her hair has been done professionally and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
I think that the way that hair is portrayed in the movies, a complete mess, as though no one knew what a comb was, is movie shorthand for caveman or cavewoman, because actually archaeologists
Which is
will
effectively what she is, to be
but
fair.
archaeologists will tell you we found bone combs dating back.
Oh,
way
right, so
back.
they did comb their hair.
So they did comb their hair.
Ah.
So the idea that they look like that is a movie thing, not a reality thing.
Uh-huh.
Now, it is also true that the hair wouldn't have looked like what she's got
No,
either.
nicely shampooed.
Yeah, but the reality is somewhere between the two.
Ah.
And the idea that you walk around with hair that's frizzy and not been brushed. I mean, as I said, bone combs go back a very, very long way. If you can make clothes by stitching skin, they will also have bone combs.
There we are.
So there you go. Yeah, she's convinced she imagined Spock, and she gets all quite upset. And he's like, no, I'm real. Both this timeline and Kirk's timeline, they mention... I wrote his name down somewhere. Where's it gone?
Oh, the nasty guy. Yes, I'm not sure I wrote his name down, unfortunately.
I think we go with Z.
It did, didn't it? It was very sci-fi.
Zorkon.
Zorkon.
And that's where he sends people.
All kneel before Zorkon.
and-
That actually sounds like a ZX Spectrum game. Which would have taken 5 hours to load and then crashed.
Yeah. And so she hasn't really done anything wrong. It's just that her family was punished by the dictator, basically. And I think that she says that, and sorry, this is where he's reaching ever so slowly, trying to get the beer.
Damn it, why isn't the force a thing? I could get my beer to my hand.
Hang on.
My other one is trapped by the dog.
Yeah, so given what happens later, I think the reason that you have this about her backstory is so that you believe that she's innocent, even though she's been sent there as a prisoner. She hasn't done anything wrong, and therefore she is trustworthy.
Yeah, she's a sympathetic character despite the fact that she's not quite upfront with Spock and McCoy.
Yeah, but I think you're supposed... When she tells them you can't go back,
She's lying.
Well, we don't know that she's lying.
Well, she says she doesn't know that for certain, so shouldn't. She should have said, "I can't go back."
But she doesn't know that they haven't been prepared, if that makes sense.
She does admit later that she doesn't know that they can't go back.
Yeah.
You know, so, she did lie.
She did, but yeah, this stage we are supposed to believe her, I think. Meanwhile, Kirk is interviewed by an official who I think they call the prosecutor.
Yeah, so he's arrested by a constable.
Yeah.
Played by a guy called Johnny Hamer, who voiced Swindle, Highbrow, Recoil, Caliburst and Vortex from, can you guess by those names?
The Transformers, robots in disguise. The Transformers, more than meets the eye. The Transformers.
He does an awful lot of voices for cartoons, as well as being in 20 episodes of MASH as well.
Okay. But now this dude who plays the actual prosecutor...
Yes!
I think I recognise him.
Hang on, let me just...
Oh gosh, you've got to
I've
balance
really not got enough
everything.
hands here. He's played by Kermit Murdoch.
Kermit Murdoch.
Which sounds like a cross between the Muppets and the A-Team.
It does!
And now we've got to cast the A-Team with the Muppets. But keep one human, and I think it has to be BA, doesn't it, really? Unless possibly Animal could play BA, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But I think you'd probably keep BA. But
so Kermit Murdoch, that's
Kermit
the thing.
Murdoch, we now call... But Kermit's not usually the crazy one, though, is he?
No.
So you'd want it'd have to be Gonzo would be Murdoch, wouldn't he?
Yes.
And then your face would be possibly Miss Piggy. Actually, I think we'd probably gender swap face for this.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, they did.
Yeah.
They did it in PSG.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever cast PSG with them, but anyway, we haven't got time for that tonight. And that leaves the guy in charge of the cigar, Hannibal, who possibly could be Kermit. Yes, that would be Kermit, actually.
I don't know, because...
I mean, I can't imagine Kermit smoking a cigar, but,
No,
it was the 70s.
It's been decided for us that it's Kermit Murdoch. So you just got to imagine, because the Kermit flail, that fits.
Okay. He's just got to act a bit crazier than usual.
So then you've got to think, who would be either Murdoch or BA?
I'd say BA's got to be Mr. T. I'm sorry, you can't recast Mr. Well, they tried in the film. That was the least best casting, wasn't it? Because there's nobody that's going to replace Mr. T. Let's face it.
So then
they should have got some old woman to play the part instead. That would have been funnier.
What about Dr. Teeth? I can see Dr. Teeth smoking a cigar, and he was in charge of the band.
Yeah, okay, I could kind of go with that. Anyway, where were we? He was played by Kermit Murdoch, who played... Okay, I didn't make a list because, again, he was in lots of things, and so may have been in some of your Perry Masons and the like, but he always played judges and attorneys.
Yeah. No, judges I can see him
Yeah.
But, yeah, I definitely recognised him from... But, I mean, not in that costume, but his face, to me, was very recognisable.
Oh, I just spilled beer on the dog. She slept through it, so all is well.
Oh, she loves you. She's happily asleep there. Yeah. Bless her. Oh.
I tell you what, Kirk in prison reminds me of Mariner in Fully Dilated.
Yes. Yeah.
Except Mariner handled it with far more style and made friends.
Yes. But this is one of those episodes where actually I like Kirk. He's being perfectly reasonable. He's
okay. There's one instance of terrible overacting, but generally, actually, you get the impression Shatner's enjoying this.
Yeah.
You can always tell the episode he enjoys, he actually bothers to bring his A game. If he's not interested in being in the episode, boy, does it show.
Yeah. No, I think he's all right in this, in the main. So things like, for example, when he's doing the sword fighting and all the rest of it, I get the impression he's having fun. Do you see what I mean? And I find fun.
I think he has a good rapport with Mr. Atos as well.
Yeah,
and I think that helps.
So mostly I like him in this, to be honest. So anyway, he's interviewed by the prosecutor. He mentions the library, and it's quite clear that the prosecutor knows what the library is.
Well, thanks to a massive crash zoom, which gives it away rather, doesn't it?
And then he says, no, this man is innocent. And then there's a cry of, which, from... Oh, is it the guy who arrested him?
No, that's from the woman, isn't it?
From woman. But then...
Poor thing.
What is it, FOP 1 or FOP 2 or the constable or whatever? It was like, no, I heard it. I heard the voices.
Yeah, that's the constable. Yeah, he turns up at this point, yeah.
So then he's locked up again. Then McCoy wakes briefly, so Spock says he's going to go and look for Kirk. He thinks that McCoy's going to be all right, and then it's like, well, no, you can't go back through the portal. But also, it's the question of, well, if he goes and he finds Kirk, then McCoy isn't going to be able to get through, and he kind of realises the futility.
Somehow Kirk makes a captain's log. I mean, how's he doing this? Despite being stuck in a cell in the past of an alien world.
Well, I think what it is that he doesn't know what to do when he can't make a captain's log. I think is a coping mechanism, and even
But he's literally got nothing to record it on.
No, so he's just saying it anyway.
Oh, okay, because he's mad. Right. The jailer comes in with grog of some sort. Oh, it's coffee, isn't it? He says, yes. And Kirk manages to overpower him and get his keys because Kirk.
Yeah.
He gets back in his cell when the prosecutor turns up, but Jim drags him into his cell and threatens to denounce his fellow time traveller. The prosecutor reveals that Kirk wasn't properly prepared before being sent back and warns him that he won't survive long as a result. Meanwhile, McCoy is feeling well enough to have a go at Spock for practicing medicine without a licence, which is nice.
Yeah.
He, more seriously, also accuses the Vulcan of wanting to stay in the past and insults his ears yet again, making Spock, well, angry. And you won't like him when he's angry. With the prosecutor's help, Jim finds the portal back. It's a neat effect where his hand disappears into the wall.
Yeah, I like it. It's good. It's
and
good.
reappears in the library. Kirk hails the Enterprise to find out they've only got 17 minutes to save the Earth. Sorry, before the sun blows up.
Flash, I love you, but we only have 14 hours to save the Earth.
Yep, he locks one ATOS replica in a room, knocks another out, only for the real one to zap him with a lightsaber, which is shocking. And this is our moment of shacting, unfortunately. Yeah. Spock reluctantly eats meat, which surely won't do his guts much good if he's not used to it. I mean, remember when I first went vegetarian? It lasted about a year, and then I decided I was going to break my meat fast with a load of pork pies, and unsurprisingly then had bad guts for a day.
Well, when I had to stop being vegetarian, I had to do it very, very slowly.
Yeah, it's not good to go cold turkey. Is that the phrase?
No, I mean, it wasn't. I had to do it. I didn't have an option because of the ridiculous amount of weight I'd lost because there was so little I could actually eat at that point. And when I did it, it had to be very much in a planned manner. Rather
than just hogging a load of pork pies.
It was a small amount of chicken and not every day. Do you know what I mean? It was...
not a load of pork pies.
No.
Because you're a sensible person. Anyway.
Well, I'm more sensible than you, but
it's a low bar. It's a low bar.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Yes.
Spock tells Zarabeth she's beautiful and he realises he really isn't himself. She says she's longed to hear him say that. Or is it the writer saying that, possibly, I think?
Yeah. Well, or is it she's longed to hear anyone say that?
Yeah.
That would fit, wouldn't it? That she's been on her own this time.
Yeah. They kiss, and he grins, which is always weird.
I think it's the ears. The Vulcan ears make grinning look odd.
No, it's just seeing Nimoy smile is always odd. I mean, he doesn't do it very often, and therefore, it looks odd. In a bizarre episode of Supermarket Sweep, ATOS is pushing Kirk on a trolley.
Love that.
The captain rolls off before he can be pushed through the portal, like a piece of chicken or something, or a large piece of ham, more likely. Mm-hmm. Bizarrely, McCoy accuses Spock of lying to him without moving his lips. That's the bizarre thing, because this has been really badly edited. The Doctor accuses Spock of accepting Zarabeth's word because it's what he wanted to believe. The Vulcan defends her, but Bones assaults the poor woman, and Spock leaps to her defence. You begin to wonder if McCoy is regressing as well, to caveman level, presumably. McCoy asks Spock if he's trying to kill his friend and whether he's had these feelings before. He states that the Vulcan he knew won't exist for another 5,000 years, and here's where we get to the bit that makes no sense at all. Just because Spock has travelled back in time to when Vulcans can't control their emotions doesn't mean he'd regress, because if he's going to regress, he'd just regress to being a sperm or something.
Yeah, and the idea that regression means that the phaser doesn't fit with the tricorder not working. What does work and just another rewrite would have fixed is the idea that they haven't been prepared, so they're both ill.
Yes.
And so the idea
that would have been much better.
That would have.
Yeah, I wish they'd gone with that.
The seeds of that are sown, but it's not. That's what they should have gone with, not regression.
Yeah.
And then, therefore, when he comes back through the portal, he's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Because that would all work.
Yeah,
it's there. Just needed one more polish. That's all it needed.
Spock challenges Zarabeth on whether they can go back, and she admits she doesn't know in their case, only on her own. They head off into the cold to try and get back and hear Kirk calling out to them. A tearful Zarabeth sees them off. Atos makes his hurried escape, and Scotty says,
It's now or never.
to beam up.
I
And beam up
like
they do.
Atos's hurried escape, though. He always
Yeah.
had a plan.
Yeah.
And he just dives and goes for it, he knows. I like it. I like it.
The remastered version shows the sun doing explode in CGI as they fly away. Although the original effect is fine, to be honest.
There's nothing wrong with it.
It lets you know that the sun has exploded, and of course has a much better enterprise. So go with the original on this one, definitely. So then, classic or toss? I mean, the setup is rather Guardian at the edge of forever, so we do feel like we're retreading old ground a bit here. But it does feel like it's got a cast of thousands. There's a good variety of sets, and they're quality sets as well. The team up with Spock and McCoy is always good to see, and I wish they did that more often. But yeah, Spock regressing doesn't make any sense, and that rather holds the plot below the waterline for me, it has to be said.
Whereas for me, this did need one last polish just to make it that it's about them being ill because they haven't been prepared.
Yeah.
And it would have been a classic, because I really do genuinely enjoy this episode.
Yeah, you did remember enjoying this, and lo and behold, you did.
And I genuinely did. It was fun. It isn't a classic. I don't think it can be a classic. Because
I mean, it's
of that
considered by
weirdness.
some to be, but I don't think it can be just because the plot doesn't make enough
Because
sense.
it needed that one last polish, and to make it was to do with them not being prepared is why Spock is behaving the way he's behaving.
So what I've done is I've gone back and listened to bits of our podcast rather than the whole ones, because I haven't got time to sit through all of them. I mean, I do re-listen to our podcast, but not recently. But I've re-listened to our sort of final thoughts sort of thing each time, and scored the episodes out of 5, so that next time we record, we can give the top tier season 3 episodes, and then the ones that are just bubbling under. And would you think this would be a bubbling under
I would
one?
put this as a bubbling
This would be
under.
a 4 out of 5. Okay.
Yeah, it's... Well,
To my spreadsheet.
I think actually probably for season 3, this is top tier
Yeah.
compared to the rest of season 3.
Well, there are some better episodes than this.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's the best, but
Yeah.
for season 3, I'd say this is top tier because there's so much that really isn't.
I still think it needs to be a 4 rather than a 5, personally.
Yeah, I think probably. But then that for me, then you're looking at almost no 5 out of 5 episodes in season 3.
There are
Does
one
that
or
make
two,
sense?
but we'll talk about that
Yeah.
next time.
Fair enough.
Juicy
but no,
danglers.
fine.
I'll
But no,
get my juicy danglers out for you.
dog sound. But yeah, for me, this is just bubbling under. I enjoyed it. It was fun. As I said, it just needed that final polish to correct that bit. I think for me as well, I think the other reason why this is bubbling under rather than a classic is because we only get the big 3.
Yes, very much so. I mean, this is a archetypal, particularly season 3, but it has been a running thing for quite a bit of Trek, unfortunately, is that it's all about these 3 guys. And it's like,
Whereas the ones that really are a classic that I like the most feature more.
Yeah,
than that.
they
Do you
use
want-
more the crew, yeah.
Yeah, and this doesn't. But this does have the big ups of, more than one set. There isn't any sexism. There isn't any that I'm aware of. There isn't any racism. Shatner's performance is good.
Yeah.
And it's not all about Shatner. You've got Spock and McCoy
Yeah.
as well. So there's and if you set aside for a moment the weirdness about time travel and just think about the concept here that there is a society under threat. They don't have space flight, but they have invented time travel and they've sent their whole population back in
That
time.
is a cool concept.
It's cool,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah. And there's this whole library where they're all...
And
yeah,
there's all this library, and they've got these CD-ROM things, which back in the 60s, that's
Yeah,
a
that
fucking
looked cool.
amazing idea.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to love about this episode, I think, personally.
Cool. Let's find out what other people thought. We've heard from Jeff Hyman, who said, I really enjoy this one. Wild, high-concept premise. Lots of good Spock and McCoy banter, and a doomed love story.
Yeah.
There we are. Boss has this to say, this started off in a familiar fashion, the big 3 beaming down to a planet that only had a short time before destruction, but nobody left alive on it. Then a strange man appears who, in a major plot twist, wasn't a godlike alien. Yes! Yes, maybe that's what was so refreshing about this.
Yeah.
You're right. I assume the duplicates were either clones or androids, although that was not explained. You're right, yeah, that is a bit odd, but... After passing through the portal, Kirk ends up in a time period that appeared to be a cross between 17th century England and France. He gets into a silly fight, and then ends up in jail for the umpteenth time. He quickly escapes and then comes back, and that's about all that happens with him. Bones and Spock, meanwhile, get to have fun reversing roles. Spock got to be a doctor, and then moons over a lady. Do we mean moons? I don't think we do, but anyway. I mean, I certainly didn't see that happen, and I would have remembered Nimoy's butt. While McCoy works out the solution and gets Spock to accept logic. That's a good point, actually, yeah. But again, it's because apparently Spock's going all wild.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand the effect going into the past had on Spock due to Vulcans being undeveloped 5,000 years ago. Surely the same would apply to McCoy.
Yep.
He didn't change at all. Yes.
Yeah.
Also, why did the phaser not work, but the tricorder did?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
The revelation that they couldn't go back added another level of jeopardy. But it was quickly resolved when Kirk was told that he could go back due to not having been transformed. They did seem to take an unnecessary amount of time to go back through the portal and get off the planet considering the time pressures. Shatner even did a trademark pause before getting Scotty to beam them up. He did. He waited ages.
He did. Yeah.
Overall, it was a decent enough episode that didn't drag too much, with a good central idea about people escaping into the past. I liked the supernova effect at the end as well. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, I think there's going to be positive time here, but we'll find out what Sampo and Jonna thought.
Hello.
Hello.
So we just watched all our yesterdays.
What happened there?
Illogical time travel shenanigans.
I don't know. I repaired my pants. They're nice.
Yes, good for you.
Holes.
Well, I guess it's a nice concept. The sun is going nova. Where do you escape? Because apparently you have time travel but no spaceships. You escape to the past. But I think that sort of creates either a paradox or an endless loop. Because when you go to the past, I mean, as I assume you live there, you get children, which means the population gets bigger, which means that in the present, even more people need to go back to the past, which again means that there's more people, and it's like...
I didn't see any children.
Well, no, but I mean, it's in theory. Maybe this is how the one planet in the other episode came to be, which was so full of people that they were just all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the end result, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a whole weird thing that they had to modify their cells to fit into the time where they were going, and...
How come cells are different in different times?
Exactly, and suddenly, because Spock went 5,000 years in the past, he started acting like Vulcans 5,000 years ago. Well, I mean, I'd like to say time travel doesn't work like that, but, well, maybe it does. Who knows? All we have is fiction.
Yeah. And I don't understand why or how they chose the times that they traveled in.
Well, I mean, the librarian seemed to indicate that everyone could choose freely, but the woman in the cave was like that she was forced to go there.
Yeah, she acted like she'd be a prisoner.
It wasn't completely clear.
Nope. But yeah, this is what we got. We watched Star Trek, so we can't complain.
We sure can. One question: What was with the accent of the red-headed woman?
Yes, very good question, and I wonder what our British friends will say about the. On my ear, it sounded like a made-up Cockney or dialect or whatever.
Maybe there was a bit of Scottish or Irish in there, but it wasn't. I don't know where.
She wasn't real.
Yeah, that's true, because she was an alien after all, so no reason to think she'd have an actual accent. I mean, you said something like everyone was talking like they were drunk in the time where Kirk was.
Yeah, well, weren't they?
Maybe. I mean, that's completely non-suspicious thing just to shout, there are witches, or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's the sure way of not getting burned at the stake in that.
Since I was focused on my pants, how did Kirk got back to the library?
Well,
did he find a door from the wall?
No, I mean, it was just the inconspicuous part of the wall with no barrels in front of it, and he just walked. I mean, again, I don't really understand. Was that portal open all the time? Because for McCoy and Spock, they had to find exactly the right disc or whatever. And
all right.
And could anyone walk through? I mean, I assume he only got through because That's where he came from.
Good thing that any polar bears or other meaty subject didn't wander from the polar years.
Or the whatever fencing inquisitors.
Yeah, I don't know which one I would be more afraid of. Like with the polar bear, you could negotiate.
So if you're in a forest, would you rather have a polar bear or the
Inquisitor?
Yeah, the Inquisition. Yes. What a pickle.
Hey, how many people really wanted Star Trek to continue? Since I read a book and they said that after season 2 the many letters came and they wanted the series to go on, and the result was season 3.
I have no idea, but I guess at least some of them had buyer's remorse.
I have the book right here. I can check it out if you want to.
No need, thank you. Well, let's see how it ends next week.
Look, no hole.
Yes, you fixed another piece of clothing while we...
I am skillful.
Good for you. I mean, the next thing you know, you'll be living in a cave in a strange sort of bikini thing.
No fear for that. Don't like bikinis.
Well, until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, the Yona bikini. Well, okay.
Yeah.
It'll sell, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, it was a bloody odd outfit that she was wearing. I understand that the cave itself was heated by a hot spring.
Yeah. But it did seem ridiculously skimpy, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
But hey, this is Star Trek.
Yeah.
What funny what you said about buyer's remorse for those who had the campaign and it came back and it was not good.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly how people felt. I got a book by B. Joe Trimble, who was like a celebrity Star Trek fan, even back in the day before, way before the internet and celebrity fans were a thing. And yeah, she wrote a book all about her because she was one of the key people behind the writing campaign. And she was very disappointed with what they got. I mean, she was probably happy that Star Trek continued, even if it continued badly. Because at least it still had potential, and there were some good episodes in season 3. But she was still really cheesed off that it was cack, and then of course it just gets cancelled again because it's so cack. So.
Yeah.
Then she gets all excited about the animated series, more of which in a few weeks' time.
Yeah. So in terms of the time travel, it creates a closed loop. So there's different types of time travel, and this is the form where they go back in time, and then they live their life.
They always would have gone back in time,
and then but it takes a very, very long time for the loop to work its way through because they go back so far. If that makes sense.
I did wonder whether part of the conditioning they have before they're sent back would have sterilised them, stop them producing more children. I mean, that doesn't matter so much if it is a closed loop because any children they do have, they always would have had. Yeah. So
that's how I see it as a closed loop. And again, if it had had another polish, what I think we would have had is it would have been made clearer that what was originally developed as a form of punishment by a tyrant was repurposed by the society to save
as an escape mechanism. Yeah. Exactly, yes. And that was the impression I got, but they maybe should have spelt that out a bit more clearly. But yeah, Zarabeth was sent back earlier than the people escaped as a punishment, but then people realised they had to get their hell out of the planet, or at least out of that time period of the planet, so they all used that process to escape. Although it does beg the question, I suppose, just out of completeness, why the library had that particular time period, because who the hell would choose to go back there? I mean, clearly nobody did.
Because they have from the
but if it was left over from then, I suppose that makes some sense, But ultimately you'd have thought they'd gone, no, we don't need that one, nobody's going back there.
Yeah. And then, in terms of how is it that Kirk gets back and not Spock and Bones, it's because Kirk is shown where the entrance to the portal is. Kirk and Bones have moved quite some way away, helped by Zarabeth, and so it's not as easy for them to get back.
Plus, they can only go back together, apparently, interestingly, because they arrive together, which is an interesting little quirk.
That's not explained particularly, but also in terms of why does it then take Kirk so long to find where Spock and Bones are? It's because it's like all roads lead to Rome, if that makes sense. So from all these different time zones, all of the portals lead to the library, but from the library they can lead to any of the destinations on the discs.
But when even Finns are detecting that your accent is all over the place.
Oh, that's got to be bad. That's, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because, obviously as a resident of the British Isles, clearly that accent was all rubbish. But, even the Finns noticed that. I love that.
Yeah, that's how bad it is.
Yeah. Right, shall we find out what the llama god thought?
Yep.
Llama god's got like fixie coig. I can't recall the taste of food, nor the sound of water, nor the touch of grass. I'm naked in the dark. Now here we go, this is an odd episode. I mean, it's an episode that does have a decent, interesting central core concept to it, but it's also odd in that this is basically kind of like the City on the Edge of Forever again, but only different. I mean, the basic core concept with the fact that we have here a dying civilization, we seem to be finding a lot of those, don't we? But yeah, an extinct species that has found a way to escape their dying star by travelling through time. They don't have space travel, so they travel through time instead. I mean, that's an interesting solution. Obviously, it leads to some questions, which aren't actually answered here, but it's an interesting core concept. But it's not like City on the Edge of Forever, because this time, instead of Joan Collins, this time around, Kirk gets to romp around with an unconvincing Irish woman and have some adventures with the baby-eating Bishop of Bath and Wells. I mean, okay, so the woman that he bumps into and he tries to save initially, she's not Irish, but her accent is really, really fucking weird. And until you realise that this is actually the history of that planet and not Earth, you do wonder what the hell's going on with her with that accent, which is just all over the place, and the musketeers that are surrounding her. It is certainly a little bit odd. And yeah, sure, it's a bit tropey for seeing Kirk being accused of witchcraft, but the fact that despite saving the woman, she then doesn't fall for him romantically, like most women should do clearly in the universe, the fact that she then turns on him for being a witch, that's really nice to see as well, because that just isn't what normally happens to Kirk. So I guess that made a nice change. The real meat of the story really is with Spock and Bones being stuck in the distant Ice Age past of the planet, which culminates ultimately with Bones finally getting his ass whooped for being such a dick to Spock as he has been in most of this season, and I think that's pretty much deserved, really. I mean, I love Bones, but as I've said a few times, some of his barbs have been really barbed this season, so yeah, nice for Spock to finally be given that little outlet here. Again, this is an interesting idea that we have a prisoner in the form of Zarath being sent into the past as punishment. She's not killed, she's sent to the past, but ultimately all we really get from that is the fact that Spock actually gets a woman this time, and that's not such a bad thing, really, because it means we don't get a Kirk Snog count update in this episode, because yes, it's Spock. Hurrah! And I think what we can really take from this is that this is a sure sign that we are getting towards the end of the series. We're approaching the end times here of the show as a whole, because what they're doing here is they're giving viewers what they want. I mean, Spock's status as being the one that all the women wanted was, I think, well established by this point in the series, to the point where I think Shatner himself was probably quite jealous about it. But of course, this does give us a problem, because Spock is, of course, not, with this part of his life anyway, much of a shagger, something that obviously Strange New Worlds has literally no problem with, but never mind, we'll ignore that one for now. Although we have had Spock falling for a couple of women this season, he doesn't really act on it because he's Spock, isn't he? So really, it feels like the time travel aspect of this episode is really just an excuse to find a way for Spock to actually be able to do some romantic action. And this time, the excuse is that his body's being turned into that of a Vulcan from 5,000 years previous, which is an interesting idea, again, but it's something that could have been played with more. I mean, if their bodies are adapting to what life was like 5,000 years ago, wouldn't McCoy's immune system have also been completely shot? Humans 5,000 years ago weren't that great, so there's a lot here they could have explored, but no, it just really wants to be about Spock getting googly eyes for a hot redhead with far, far too impractical clothing in a really cold cave. And yeah, Zarath really does exist only to be pretty, to give something for Spock to moon over. She has nothing to do, and she doesn't really have any agency. But at the end of the episode, you do, and I think it's mostly from her performance, you do feel the tragedy of her being left behind. She had this brief glimpse of companionship, only to be abandoned once again, so. But still, it is a shame. But then, of course, this was Star Trek, and it was the 60s, so yay, okay, anyway. But yeah, it's a nice kind of little subplot there, with a little bit of confrontation with Spock and Bones, and Spock getting to ruminate on some things, and then the whole idea of the loneliness and the harshness of the prison sentence. It does work, at least from an atmospheric point of view, so I don't mind that one too much. And also, I've got to mention Mr. Atos, whose name being up on is a lot more clear if you watch it with subtitles like we do. Yeah, he's just nice as being increasingly frustrated, not really getting what's going on. And I do love how the episode ends with him basically running out screaming in almost a Boimler-like fashion to save himself before the star goes nova. So yeah, that was funny as well. The best thing about this episode, though, is when Kirk's accused of witchcraft, they bring up the fact that he was talking to a spirit called Bones, which the frightened people of the past take to mean that that spirit was actually something very evil, because skeletons are evil and bones, because who has a skeleton? I don't know, no, but it's just one of those things. I really like that little detail. One odd thing, though, and you're going to have to tell me whether this is the case or not, there's actually no scenes in this sex on the Enterprise at all. Is this the first time that's happened in the series? Got a feeling it probably isn't, but I just can't put my finger on where that has happened before. So yeah, odd one that, especially given this is the penultimate episode ever. But then they didn't know that, did they? So yeah. On the whole, this isn't bad. Like I say, it's not original. They could and should have spent a lot more time diving into the implications of this race of beings saving themselves by travelling back into their own past. There's definitely some questions to be answered there, but this is 60 Star Trek now, so I guess this is what we were going to get. And it succeeds by basically not focusing on Kirk having a romantic subplot this time round, and the stuff in the Ice Age is kind of atmospheric, so yeah, it kind of works. I don't mind this one at all. So there you are then, not a bad one, and only one more left to go. Will the next episode be good, or will it be one final bit of toss? I don't know. I'm not really holding out much hope for that. Until then, as ever, I'm looking forward to finding out what everyone's made of this. I hope you're all able to hang on for just one more. We made it this far, we can do it, just one more. And until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest criticism beyond the dodgy science on the time travel I have of it is a bit City on the Edge of Forever Light, but it's a slightly different setup, so I'm happy to forgive that. The fact that the woman, as she's called, doesn't fall for Kirk is indeed good.
Yes, I do like that.
Bones getting a comeuppance for his racism.
Yeah,
definitely good.
Definitely needed.
About time.
Was deserved. Yeah. My notes actually say deservedly so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do kind of think this whole thing is just so that Spock will fall for a woman, unfortunately.
Yeah. Bit like, well, was it with the spores and the flowers?
Yeah,
in a tree.
Yeah, they've got to come up with a different reason, but they've got to do it.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. The whole Bones, and that's why it's called Bones. I hadn't thought of it at the time, but yes, that's like, of course, Bones. He's talking to Bones. Of course, they're going to think that. It's logical. Is this the first episode with no scenes on the Enterprise?
Yes, it is. It's the only episode with no scenes on the Enterprise, yeah. And Mr. Atos's Boimer is a nice sort as well.
Yeah.
Super. Glad you enjoyed it. And finally, the Pie Man.
Hello, Orgs. Parry here to talk about all our yesterdays. Now, this one I found a little unremarkable. It had some good points. I actually like the concept, the idea of a civilization that... when they knew their planet was doomed, rather than try to escape the planet, they escape into their own past. Although effectively that's still a civilization that is dying. That's everyone in the civilization kind of accepting their fate, and it's all over, that they're just going to go and live it out in some era in the past. And that's kind of not really focused on enough in my view, because that's probably the more interesting part. What instead we get is kind of this mystery where, through no fault, through no one ever actually explaining themselves, Mr. Atos, and yes, I didn't actually, it had to be explained to me, because I'm apparently not that bright. His name is Mr. A to Z, because he's a librarian, you see? But yeah, the concept of, sort of a lot of the story is basically Kirk being stuck in that world with that woman with what I can only describe as an alleged accent, and him trying to get back, and the arguably more deep plot of Spock and McCoy being stuck in the prison time, and that the head of this planet actually sent people to basically go and die in a frozen ice age. And Spock sort of falling in love. Now, again, one of the things that's interesting, someone had a take at one point that Spock is actually depressed, and that brief idea that he could actually be happy, living with your sort of, I can't remember her name, I'm going to call her Raquel Welch, because she was kind of wearing the furry bikini. And that's an interesting thought. That's almost Spock's, I could leave it all and just live here, but of course he can't, because he's not been prepared. And that's meant to be the tragedy at the end, that he'll die if he stays, she'll die if she goes, and she's left there alone forever. It's going for that sort of sad, melancholy sci-fi again. Kind of done that a couple of times now. Does it work? It's okay. One of the things I did like, and again, another part I enjoyed, was actually, it wasn't just Spock sort of musing that, he had to eat meat at the time, but they could create a small greenhouse using a hot spring, and him sort of musing about, effectively spending his life there. The other part was, at one point when McCoy calls him, you pointy-eared hobgoblin or whatever, and Spock actually comes back and says, I don't like that. In fact, I never have. And there's part you're going, good on you, Spock, because it's almost like your person who's accepted, some people of colour have described it as they accept a lot of the racist stuff because you don't want to be one of the troublesome ones. And it's almost Spock doing that. And again, they kind of explain it's part of the atmosphere in the area, but I think it's just him realising that there's potentially no escape, and yes, he's now not putting up with McCoy's crap. So I actually did really like that bit. It's just a shame that the episode was kind of boring. The Kirk bits were dull. Like that woman with her screeching, whatever her voice was meant to be. The Kirk bits were dull. A lot of it would have been solved if Kirk and Spock and everyone just said, oh, don't worry, we're from space. But because everyone's kind of talking around stuff, everyone's confused. So there's kind of that, and yeah, I just found it a bit dull, I'm afraid. Again, the series is kind of stumbling to a close, but like I say, conceptually they're good. I just don't think they're quite doing the right things with them, but that's just my view. So all it remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I'll hope to be back in the next one, but until then, bye for now.
Bye.
But you're right, they do talk around the fact that they've come from space, but I don't know whether it's called the Prime Directive yet, if you see what I mean. But basically, we know that this civilization doesn't have space travel, so are they therefore bound to not say, I think?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird that they've got time travel and not space travel, but that's the way this society's gone. So since they haven't invented warp drive, the Federation shouldn't be interfering and letting them know stuff. So
yeah.
Alleged accent, yes.
Yeah.
And ultimately the escape into the past thing is explained by the closed loop, but they could have explored that more.
I think it needed another polish.
Yeah, definitely.
I think everything that was needed is there. It just needed one more go, basically, because it's not spelled out in the way that it could have been, that would have made it better.
Yeah. But still pretty damn good for season 3. I think everybody's agreed.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah, I think so.
1 to go. And it's Turnabout Intruder. Oh boy. And we'll be covering that Tuesday the 27th.
Yep.
We'll be covering Turnabout Intruder, which is indeed the last episode of season 3. Will it be any good?
I don't remember it being good, my love.
No, I certainly don't either. But hey, it's the last one. And on Thursday the 22nd, we shall be covering the last episode of Lower Decks Season 5.
Yep.
Which is...
I don't know what
the
it's called.
Next Generation.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Finishing off stuff. Wow, who'd have thought it, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
Until then, take care. Cheery bye.
Bye.
The Star Trek theme was written by Alexander Courage, and here was arranged and performed by Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Pelastides.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
We have a Facebook group which you're welcome to join.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com. Find us on Blue Sky at broadcastammo.bsky.social.
And I'm at revorg.bsky.social.
Shut it down!